Right, here we go. Solstice, how are you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. Really excited to be here. Thanks for making time to make this happen.
It's dope. That's dope. I've been listening to your project so far, and as well as like your other new music too. Like "Pick Your Poison" is also like a very like dope song too, and the contrast between like the reverb projects to like the other like project in comparison, it's also dope too. And being from Alabama and having that culture there too, and like redefining the artist in Alabama, it's actually very interesting as well.
Yeah, 100%. Funny enough, so I actually started playing guitar when I was 16, and so my introduction to music was hard rock bands and metal bands. Linkin Park and Evanescence were really the two first bands that I gravitated towards when I was younger. My early teenage years. And my parents played a lot of like soul music, gospel music, R&B artists and stuff too. But I might have gravitated towards the opposite of that when that's all I was hearing for a certain period of time. So I was just looking for something else. And then funny enough, I do a roundabout and come back to it because that's just what my voice is conducive to. I have a bassy voice, but a lot of the artists that I listen to, those bands as well, all have vocalists that hit those higher registers. So had to reconstruct something that works for me naturally. As far as the culture and everything with music here in Alabama, obviously it's a southern state here in the States, so country is probably the more predominant genre that people listen to down here. And so for me and my team as well, we really want to do something where people might have some familiarity with what we're doing as a foundation, but we want to bring that edge that's going to make them look closer and go, okay, these guys are definitely doing something different, not something like we've seen here in the States, let alone in Alabama of all places, Birmingham specifically. So
No doubt, no doubt. So let's start it off. So growing up in Birmingham, was your city like a big place for music back then in terms of being an industry like city, or just as a community like back then?
yeah, so I'm actually originally from Madison, Alabama, so North Alabama, right outside of Huntsville, 256, shout out. I moved to Birmingham after college, after university, and that's where Midnight District started from. So but like I said before, started off listening to a lot of rock and metal bands, so there were some pretty big acts that would come through Madison and play I guess Huntsville technically, and play at the main theater there, the main stage. So I actually did my first like major rock concert there. 3 Days Grace, Avenged Sevenfold came through, Asking Alexandria were some bands too, and the local scene was very, very supportive of local bands too. Maybe even only 20 people might show up to a show, but if they've seen your local band before, they went back and learned all of the lyrics to your songs, and they're really supportive. So I would definitely say it's a solid music town. Obviously not as big as like a Miami or a Houston, Texas, or New York or LA. But as far as the cities in Alabama that have supportive music scenes, I think Madison and Huntsville are up there. Probably more so for hip hop, probably down here in Birmingham is definitely probably the hip hop hotspot in Alabama, as far as what I can tell. But after making that transition from being strictly a rock metal guitarist into this alternative R&B thing that I do now, I hardly even know what to call it as far as a genre, but I can definitely tell that there is support. And I think that support in that following of local music acts is only getting stronger as time goes by.
No doubt, no doubt. And like with Alabama, it's actually getting on the rise right now in the whole like hip hop scene for a bit. So there's like rappers like No Cap, Rilo Rodriguez, YB and Amir, the late Dobie, rest in peace. And then you have other acts like The Soldier, and then also who else? This other guy too. I think there's TNT Tez, and then I think like a lot of other acts too. TLE Single, that's the guy who I was thinking about. So
yeah, yeah, I've lots of great guys that have come out of here, especially in the hip hop scene. Again, I'm only really been in this space for a year, so I actually have had to do my homework sometimes to brush up on like, okay, who are some of the guys that have come out of here? Obviously, YB and Amir is one of the bigger guys that have come out of Birmingham specifically. So it's really cool, and I genuinely believe that nobody is really doing what my team and I with Midnight District is doing. and that's going to definitely help with longevity and continuing to garner support and garner fans here.
No doubt, no doubt. And in determining like the landscape of the Alabama music scene, please redefine to me what it means to be an artist in Alabama in that sense.
Yeah, so for me personally, kind of going back to Alabama as a southern state, tradition is just one of those values that a lot of southern states have, and I think sometimes it can be not such a great thing as far as pushing things forward. I think sometimes people kind of get stuck in their not stuck in their ways, but just stuck in the past. So then you get this problem of people kind of turning up their nose at something new. There's a subgenre of rock and metal called progressive metal and progressive rock, and it's just all of that is about doing stuff that's not conventional. And I take that approach to songwriting, creating my sound and stuff with music, so that I can bring something to the table that is not normal to hear. So when you think of just classic R&B, classic hip hop and rappers and stuff, mainstream rap, that's great, and you're gonna have success on the charts and stuff. But let's do something different.
No doubt, no doubt. And with the Alabama music scene right now too, I also forgot to mention there's this other artist, I think by the name of Clever, who has worked with like Juice WRLD and Justin Bieber. He is from Alabama, right? Like I think so, or
What was his name again?
Clever. Yeah, he. Yeah, but like with artists like that and like everyone else mentioned, how do you feel about the Alabama music scene at the moment, and do you feel that there should be some changes on the direction of where the Alabama music scene should go, or do you think it's fine like the way it is?
Yeah, so I definitely think it's continuing to gain traction. In fact, especially because of COVID, the pandemic, everybody's on their phone for longer periods of time. Everyone's on Instagram, YouTube, just consuming more content digitally. So by extension, you're automatically going to have more of an opportunity to find new people. With Spotify and updates to Apple Music, it's now suggesting new songs to you after you finish an album or whatever. So it's like, oh, like you just got done listening to Drake. Let's show you some other artists, whatever. So and sometimes those people might be from your area, sometimes not. But as far as the direction, I just think it would be better for the progress of the music scene here to be more accepting of things that haven't already been done.
No doubt, no doubt. And to deep more into your musical background and history, I knew that before you were doing rock music before, like in like some bands, but like before, like within your childhood to high school years, what was like your musical background and history like, and what made you to decide on becoming a singer-songwriter and guitarist?
Yeah, for sure. So nobody in my immediate family played an instrument. My brother did show choir and was in musicals when he was in high school. So I was kind of around him a lot when I was younger, early elementary school years, when he had to practice and do rehearsals and stuff outside of his classes after school and stuff. So I was kind of around other people doing music, singing and stuff like that. I did children's choir when I was in church when I was younger a couple times, that was kind of like, getting my feet wet. And then when I was in middle school, one of my best friends growing up, known him since I was 9. He was already playing guitar. He had played violin since he was 2. So he and I are really close. Just being around him, I was like, I kind of want to do that, but I'm not really sure, if my parents would be cool with it, stuff like that. Then Guitar Hero came out, Guitar Hero 3 specifically, and you remember that wave, like it was sweeping the world. Everybody was playing Guitar Hero, trying to break those records, play the songs perfectly, and that was like that changed everything. That was, here's a catalog of some of the most popular rock bands and rock songs to, grace people's ears in that genre. And, songs like Cliffs of Dover by Eric Johnson, Rock You Like a Hurricane, all of those really iconic songs all put together in one catalog. And I haven't heard all this rock music and some of those metal bands too. Like there's a Slipknot song on there. And I'm hearing all this. And of course, like I have the plastic guitar in my hand, like pretending to actually play it. I'm like blown away by this. And I was like, okay, I think I want to learn how to do this for real now. And then so from there, me and that same friend, he taught me like my first little lick. It was Slither by Velvet Revolver. Just the the song is based on one riff, and it just kind of repeats itself throughout in different variations, different ways. And we had a band between the three of us. We never could find a vocalist or a drummer. Super difficult for whatever reason. But that's how things got started. And then you fast forward to when I was in university, and I just had more time between classes and stuff like that to practice. So that's where I really started getting my guitar skills up a lot better. Started taking music in general more seriously, writing my own stuff, instrumental guitar driven songs, and actually put out, it's not really out anymore, it's kind of on the down low, but I put out an instrumental guitar album in 2018 just to like, okay, I finally released something. And then the bands that I was in, that stuff didn't work out, long story short. And so then I was like, okay, let's just be a solo artist, and I linked up with Pace and Sensei, and the rest is history. History still being written, of course.
True. What would you say like would be like your top 5 like bands of all time? Like if you were to describe it to like the viewers in that sense.
Oh man, that's tough. So not in any particular order, because it's hard to separate them. Just all around, Avenged Sevenfold has to be up there, because that was the first band that like really made me go, okay, yeah, Guitar Hero 3 like in general played a big role in that, just getting me interested, getting the guitar in my hands. But when I first started playing, I was learning as many Avenged Sevenfold riffs as possible. Almost easy, Backcountry. Anybody who's an A7X fan knows their most iconic songs. Periphery, they're a progressive metal band, 3 guitarists. So their instrumentation is crazy. Just all 3 of those guys are massive influence on me with my guitar playing, and their vocalist is crazy. Just everything about their instrumentation, the way they utilize theory, different timing signatures and stuff like that is just incredible to listen to. Animals as leaders. Tosin Abasi is easily one of the greatest guitarists in the world right now, hands down. 8-string guitarist primarily, and of course, having another, Black guitarist have that kind of success, and just having somebody, that kind of represents you in the music scene like that, have that kind of success within, is also not only technically adept, but also just insanely knowledgeable about theory at the same time. So you put those two together, and you almost become God status, at guitar. So, but Animals as Leaders is his instrumental band. So yeah, those 3.
No doubt.
Trying to think. I would put any of the variations of the bands that Slash has been in. So, obviously Slash is guitarist of Guns N' Roses, but he's also worked with other acts too. Velvet Revolver and Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators. Love listening to those kinds of songs, because it's just a throwback to the classic hard rock sound. That's what Slash is. Everybody knows Slash from Guns N' Roses. So the way that he's been able to continue to keep that sound alive, and of course there are other bands like that, but Slash is just that iconic figure in that space of rock. So I would just say Slash within sub bands would be Velvet Revolver, Guns N' Roses, and then Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators for that. And then that's 4. It's hard to choose. I think for the 5th slot, I'll put in Linkin Park. Linkin Park is another iconic band. I mean, Numb in the end, of course. All right, rest in peace, Chester Bennington. But that band for sure, paved the way for a lot of different sounds, and definitely just the emotional impact that they had on so many people with a lot of their music is highly emotional and highly relatable too.
Yeah, no doubt. I think like since like my band styles have changed over time too, I could say like for my top 5 bands, I would say something like Rage Against the Machine. Very political, very dope, like within the styles and lyricism. American Football, like if you're into like math rock or emo rock, they've had this great style that they've had for many years too. And like the lead singer, Mike Kinsella, also has his own like self band, and his other band is like Captain Jazz, and then his band and his own self is Owen, making dope music, just with the twinkles and with the guitar strumming and all that. Like, it's also very dope too. And like, they've had like classic songs, Red Hot Chili Peppers, just with that creative flair, that creative energy. Like, you feel like you're listening to like, like some old Cali rock, like some old school Cali rock, some old like Mexican like influenced style rock, just like with the heavy like bass line and like with everything else too. And then also The Offspring, like if you know about The Offspring, they've been well known for many years too. They've made a staple like within the Crazy Taxi like music scene and all that, just like with that aggressive punk rock, that aggressive like rock, like in your face type rock in that sense too. And just like with the blaring vocals too, like with the lead vocalists, like they're very dope in that sense too. And then I'd also go with, Nirvana, like rest in peace to Kurt Cobain, a staple in the whole like grunge era. Like you can never get any other band like that too. And just, with his moods and with his styles and the way he reflects within his lyrics, like it makes all that sense too. And even Polly, like, which happens to be like an underrated song, I feel like that's like one of his best songs rather than like, Smells Like Teen Spirit or anything like that too, because there's other good like Nirvana songs too. And then if I had to say like another band, for like a top 6, I'd say like old school Sublime, like not Sublime with Rome, with the actual like lead vocalist. Those first 2 projects were like pretty amazing, just with the ska influence, the reggae styles, like the more melodic, fun type rock in a sense too. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great list for sure. And a lot of the bands that you listed are timeless. Like they're going to be submitted forever.
Yeah, so. No doubt. Just getting back into it. So what artists or genres were you like mainly like influenced by, and like in the future, which artists would you like to work with someday?
Yeah, so I guess my taste evolved depending on what I was doing at the time. So, of course, when I first started off, I was mostly listening to, some of the bands that we just mentioned, right? Linkin Park, Nirvana, Evanescence, Avenged Sevenfold. So really just, rock, hard rock, variations of metal, different subgenres of metal. So ages 16 through 20, 20, I was mostly listening to just progressive metal, instrumental rock, hard rock, classic rock a little bit as well. During that time when I was mostly in like bands and stuff, and then started toying with. I was in an alternative rock band for a little bit too, so I had an indie taste. The vocalist at the time, she was very much like a pseudo Billie Eilish, Lana Del Rey type sound. So she had a great voice. So we kind of tailored that to what we were trying to do when we made our original music. So kind of got into a little bit of electronic indie, dark pop sounds. And then now with the projects that I'm doing now that I'm using my vocals with, I definitely operate with the dark R&B, alternative R&B sound. I still listen to a lot of hip hop and rap artists just because it's just the vibe. And a lot of those artists use auto-tune, like 88 Glam, who's also from Toronto. Love those guys. Can't wait for 88 Glam 3, but that's probably the different genres I listen to, and it kind of switches up depending on what I'm doing. So for that guitar inspiration, I'm always going to go back to, what do my favorite metal guitarists usually do, and then for vocals, I'm operating on the spectrum of like dark pop, alternative, and R&B.
No doubt. I think with 88 Glam, as you said, they also had like a project that was about to come out like last year, Closer to Heaven, but they were actually dropped from EXO actually, so they're kind of like doing their own thing right now. So hopefully we can get like that project soon, just like as independent, and then maybe go with like another project like with what they had for like 88 Glam Free, and yeah.
Yeah, because I remember they actually dropped a visual with Havana Club the Beer on my birthday last year. And so I was like, oh man, that 88 Glam 3 is gonna hit, it's gonna go crazy. And a few songs leaked on YouTube. And then of course, I guess a combination of COVID and them getting dropped from EXO, I was like, no, like I can't believe this happened. They still released Mania though, and it was pretty good. I didn't like it completely the first listen to, but I'm growing into it now. Like it's on some of my playlists. Like I definitely vibe to it now. So I guess I just needed to give it some more time to digest and stuff. But yeah, as far as artists that I would collaborate with, one band I guess I left out that I'm really into now, Chase Atlantic. They're this alternative band from Australia. Love their stuff. A lot of people say they sound like kind of like The Neighborhood, and artists like that. Love their stuff because they do a lot of dynamic sounds. They incorporate influences of hip hop, pop, and alternative. And usually when artists or bands try to combine so many different genres, you can kind of tell that they're trying really hard to touch everything. And so they just appear to be everywhere scattered when it comes to their sound. But Chase Atlantic is definitely one of those groups that balances everything very, very well. To their production, the instrumentation choices they use. Some songs they'll use real guitars, then other songs they'll just stick to the synths and digitized sound, but it works and it's balanced. So I could definitely, I have some plans that I'm not going to say right now because I'm still in the early stages, and of course I need to grow some more myself as an artist. But two artists that I definitely will make a solid attempt to collaborate with are Chase Atlantic and Black Atlas, who's an R&B singer that's actually signed to EXO. So I did a guitar solo. So I had this series on my Instagram called Guitar Interpretations, and I would basically take my guitar. You can see my baby in the background right now. I take one of my guitars and just do a guitar solo for a song that didn't already have a solo, or I would just play my variation of it via guitar. So I'd go in and out of the melody and do some like licks and stuff around the melody. And Black Atlas's song "Lie to Me" from his latest album, I did a guitar solo for that. He saw it, he shared it, he commented on it, told me good job, keep it pushing. So like I was like, yo, like I can, like that cosign is dope too. So that was just kind of like me kind of poking him and saying, hey, what's up? I appreciate what you're doing, but I'm definitely going to make a solid attempt to collaborate with those two because I think we do something special.
No doubt, no doubt. And, I want to speak more about your latest project, Villains. So you already talked about, like, the whole, like, reverb thing and, like, how, like, it initiated. But tell me more about the creative process and the inspiration for the project, like, in general, in that sense.
So Villains was basically the first project to get done because I was actually writing two projects in parallel. And Villains was the first one that I felt like was done. The second thing that I'm working on, or what was working on and am still working on, I just felt like it needed more time, needed more polishing because I realized I could take it deeper and just explore more things with it. So I shelved it and I was like, okay, let's just focus on Villains. And Villains ended up being, I think I wrote like 8 or 9 songs for Villains and chose the best 6 that represented everything. And I felt like I had flushed out the best way that I could. And so really the inspiration behind it is just the dark side of nightlife. I pictured this kind of eerie downtown scene. Of course you have downtown Toronto with the bar scene, the party scene there. Here at, downtown Birmingham. I've, partied in Atlanta, different cities before too. So just having that, downtown really high rise skyscrapers, kind of futuristic in a way too, almost cyberpunk-ish. And my producer Pacemaker, who's also an amazing artist and rapper in his own right. On the first track, which is Villains, and he's featured on it, the first like 30 seconds is just setting the stage. And if I think you heard it right. So the first like 30 seconds is really eerie, gloomy, just synths and kind of cinematic. I wanted something really cinematic, like you're getting off of a bus, you and your guys, you and the crew, whatever, you guys are about to start making moves downtown at night, and everything starts off really great. What's your normal night like when you're going out partying? You have the pregame, you guys are getting hyped, then you guys hit the bar, and then stuff starts to go wrong. Like maybe a fight broke out at the bar, maybe your friends had a little bit too much to drink, or maybe one of the chicks that you were with started crying or something. Like things can easily go wrong, just in a split second. So everything is kind of progressively, subtly, but it's progressively getting a little darker, a little bit worse. And so the speaker changes in each song. The first song, Villains, is me just saying, hey, what's up? Like, this is the city we're about to take over. For real is the pregame, and then peaking is, you're at the club, you're at the bar having a good time. And then with Wonderland, After Dark, and Bad Habits is like the second half of the night where things are going wrong, but in different areas of the city that you went out in. So, yeah, you guys are having a good time over here, but don't ignore some of the bad things that could be happening. Just because you're not seeing it doesn't mean it's not happening. So yeah, the inspiration was really just exploring the dark side of the nightlife, basically.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, like when you had like the slowed and reverb edition of the project, because it kind of has like more of an interesting take. It actually feels like you're listening to like a PB R&B / dark R&B type project, and like following up with like the other singles that came up so far, like even with Pick Your Poison and Angelina, which usually come up with more of these contexts within that whole dark sound, that whole dark culture and everything else. Tell me like more about the inspiration beyond those tracks and the creative process as well.
Yeah, so I really wanted to use, so I guess I'll start off on the reverb stuff real quick. So I had always been listening to some of my favorite songs. I don't even remember how I found out about it. I think it just showed up randomly on my suggested YouTube feed. The YouTube rabbit hole, the algorithms are a mysterious thing, but it always recommends some great stuff or stuff that shouldn't even be there. But I just heard some song, probably a Travis Scott song or something, because a lot of his stuff goes crazy, slowed in reverb. And I was like, man, if I ever did anything with my vocals on it, I'd love to do this. And so, fast forward, Villains gets released, and I already had it in my head I was going to do it. And the magic behind it too is like you're almost creating a different experience for it, because you have to not only pitch your vocals, but you also have to find that sweet spot to where it's not awkward. And then you're also slowing the song down too. So once you find that sweet spot for that new key that the song is going to be in, it just creates a new feeling, a new experience for it, and just makes the song sound different. It hits different too. And the slowed and reverb stuff, it's usually when people are, it's late at night, or people are smoking, or they're drinking or whatever, just kind of chilling, and it's a vibe. So I knew that I was going to do it, and will probably continue to do it for the songs that I think will fit that kind of vibe. So kind of segueing into Angelina and Pick Your Poison, with the singles that came after Villains, I mostly just wanted to experiment and see what I could and couldn't do. For Pick Your Poison in particular, I had been listening to UK rap and drill and stuff like that for a while. Dave, AJ Tracy, Gigs, all of those guys. And I was like, I don't think it's been done, but I wonder if there's been a song where the vocalist is singing over a drill beat. So Pick Your Poison isn't, actually drill, but the beat patterns and the structure and stuff like that were definitely inspired by some drill stuff, Pop Smoke type vibes and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I did, of course, the singing, and then I wanted to get Pacemaker on it again because he's got that very lyrical approach to rapping that I think just when you combine those two things together, melodic and kind of dark and the sexy vibe, but then you also throw in just a bunch of bars. I think that, I guess, dichotomy of those two things coming together really makes it, really pop.
True. And, you discussed more about, the whole UK rap scene, UK drill, and I guess you're like a big fan of the scene there?
Yeah, 100%.
True. So this is like a weird question, but why do like Americans not rock with like the UK like drill or like rap sound, like even though a lot of the artists make, within a similar context, similar sound to what these American artists are doing? Like you have AJ Tracy, Gigs, Dave, Georgia, and all these other acts, doing the same style that these other rappers, these other Americans are doing. Why do you feel like it's not getting that much reception in America as it is to like UK and like Canada?
Wait, could you ask that again? So why isn't
So like why do like the Americans, like a majority of them, like not rock like the UK like rap scene as much,
well, I mean, I I think it might be just because it's not from here. As straightforward as that might be. So I mean, maybe it could just be that, as a whole, we're not really receptive to new things that, didn't come from here, that we didn't create. And that's kind of what I was talking about before, when, tradition, quote unquote, can kind of hold you back from making progress. Some things are fine to hold on to, but you're never going to move something forward if you don't explore new things. So that's why it's really easy to continue to celebrate new artists, coming out, and they're just kind of recreating the wheel again over and over again, just reiterating the same stuff that's already been done. But you're only going to get better, and you're only going to get more music if you explore sounds and things that haven't been done already, or at least, use something that hasn't been done as like a base, and then you kind of build off of that. So, but yeah, I just think it's because mostly it's because it's not from here. Because obviously it's good music because everybody in the UK loves it, and other countries are digging the UK sound. But for whatever reason, we just don't want to listen to it because it's not American.
No doubt. I know what you mean. So being in the Midnight Collective group, so tell me more about the history of the group and how it was formed with you, Pacemaker, and Sensei.
Love this story. I love telling this story. So as I mentioned before, I was in some bands, right? And the drummer of the last band that I was in actually went to college with Sensei. And I had the opportunity to meet Sensei years ago. I think like after a band practice, or me and my drummer, we were just hanging out at his place, and there was a function, a party, or something. He invited me. I didn't go for whatever reason, but he went. But I got Sensei's Instagram, so we followed each other. So we had been keeping up with each other's content and stuff on Instagram since like early 2019, something like that. And then after that band broke up, I just took a break from music for a few months, just tried to recollect my thoughts, sort some things out with my personal life, and then just figure out what the next move was. Because I was uploading stuff to my YouTube channel on a consistent basis, just doing guitar covers, just trying to stay active with content in general. And we had talked on Instagram a little bit. We hadn't met in person yet, just kind of swapped pleasantries. And so one day I just reached out to him and I was like, yo, I think we should do something together. And he was like, yeah, man, for sure. So I sent him some demos. He liked what he was hearing. So fast forward a month or two, and I met Pace on the set for one of his songs. He was shooting a music video for Rain on Me off of his first EP. And that's where I met Pace for the first time. And then fast forward to September, October of 2019. And Sensei and I did After Dark together, and Pace let us use his studio for that session and recorded it together. So we were already kind of working together on that single. Now, in my head, I felt like we could do something here, but obviously we needed to, get that team chemistry together, get to know each other a little bit more before I brought it up. But after doing After Dark, I felt like I was ready to start putting together Villains, because I had already had a bunch of different demos just lying around, and I was like, okay, let's put these together. And then next thing we know, all three of us are finishing up our EPs at the same time. So Pace had An Incredible Tape, Sensei had Way of the Sensei, and then of course me, I had Villains. And over the course of 3 months, all three of our EPs came out. So it was just boom, boom, boom. And it was pretty clear with the content we were making, we were letting people know, hey, like we all work together. And so I eventually brought up, I was like, yo, like, what if we just made this an official thing? Like, what if we made this a collective? And we have a group chat going between the three of us and some of the other people that are involved with Midnight District. But at the time, it was just the three of us. And so we just started swapping names back and forth in the text, very reminiscent of like coming up with band names, funny enough. And I can't remember who actually came up with Midnight District the title, but I think I was like, somebody said district in the group chat, and I was like, I want to use the word district. That sounds cool. And then Pace was like, well, what about some of these names or some of these words? And then we all just said Midnight District. That's it. That's the one. And then we solidified it, of course, with the MD logo that you guys have seen on merch. I'm of course wearing some of our merch right now, so I got to shout out Midnight District for sure. Yeah. And one of Pace's friends, she gave us some samples of the MD logo. We gave her a description of what we were looking for, and she nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. So the MD logo isn't on this piece of merch. This is from our first drop, but if you go to any of our social media accounts, you'll be able to see what the MD logo looks like for yourself. And you can, of course, check out the Midnight District brand at Midnight District _. So, but yeah, that's the history of it, and we're still writing it.
All right. So, how did you get the name Solstice as part of your stage name? Because like when you think about like Winter Solstice, like you kind of have like that moment to think like the night and all that type of stuff. So, how did you get that name?
Yeah, so I was so this kind of goes back to my college days. So back when I was just doing instrumental guitar stuff by myself, I wasn't really working with anybody yet. So I wanted to come up with an alias, and I was kind of basing all of my content, my music off of solo guitar players and what they were doing. So guys like Pliny, Intervals, Aaron Marshall, but is his actual name, but he goes by Intervals for his stage name. Just guys like that are kind of just doing their own thing as a solo artist. And I was going by something else that I'm not going to say because it's really bad. And I was like, man, I got to do something new, because I was working on stuff for my first album that I ever put out at the time, the instrumental guitar stuff. And I had a song, there was a demo that was called Endless Nights. And I was trying to think of something that had something to do with like a really long night or something like that. And then, like you already alluded to, the winter solstice. And so I just said, okay, well, let's just do Solstice. And I even changed it in my Apple Music iTunes account. So like when you drag new music or like downloaded files into iTunes or Apple Music, it will like automatically create an unknown artist and unknown album for you. And so I just said, let's just like create my own little artist space, like make it official right there. So I just typed in Solstice, and I was like, okay, great. Like I guess I'm Solstice now. And it just kind of stuck.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And with COVID happening, it shut down like a lot of stuff, like with concerts, with the way people presume to do things, with theme parks, even traveling around the world in some cases. So since COVID happened, do you feel that the pandemic has affected the way you tend to proceed with your business, like when it first came out? And since then, what were some changes or tweaks that you had to do to handle your business in a pandemic like this?
Yeah, for sure. So this is also kind of goes back to, while we were making our EPs first, late 2019, early 2020, the months leading up to it, we were doing a lot of networking and going to events, going to bars, just talking to people, seeing, who we could meet, and just seeing what the scene was like around, going to different shows too. Cause I hadn't been to any hip hop shows or anything like that around here in Birmingham yet. And obviously COVID takes that aspect away. Now, obviously there are still people who are going to just ignore the guidelines, even though they shouldn't be. But the three of us, we wanted to take the safest measurements possible. And so I think it really challenged us and forced us to be innovative in how we get our brand awareness going, how we create content, how can we still get people involved with what we were doing, and how can we also let people know what we're doing as well. So some of the things that we had to change was, okay, well, we can't really go out to all these parties and all these bars and all these places that we would usually go to network, right? Concerts and things like that. But what we can do is start networking with people online. And so I am constantly, DMing people, just talking to people. I'm in a community of over 4,000 people. A lot of them are artists online. And of course, artists from, all over the world, not just from here in Birmingham, but, having that kind of community and having those connections, your network is your net worth, right? So the more people especially if those people are doing things that you want to do, or are just at higher heights. Maybe they're, moving more product than you are. Maybe they have wider reach, or maybe they have access to resources that you wouldn't have access to if you hadn't have met them. So networking online is definitely something that has been huge to kind of replace the, going out to bars and parties and you just meeting people and spreading the word. And then that's also kind of what forced Midnight District to really become not just the name and the symbol to represent me, Pace, and Sensei, but that's also what the pandemic also propelled into a clothing brand and stuff. So, which led to more content, and then also led to us collaborating with a lot of people, not only, friends that we knew personally, but, friends of a friend, like, hey, I saw you guys wearing that shirt. Where'd you guys get it? And, we're like, oh yeah, like we made this shirt. We're like, oh, well, I'd love to model for you sometime. So now we're meeting, people that like what we're doing genuinely, and they want to be a part of what we're doing. So the pandemic really just forced us to get creative on how to not lose momentum and how to, continue to bring brand awareness to what we were doing as artists and for the collective as a whole. And then of course, we're a business. So as a business, you need to have some type of stream of income. You have to have a way to make money. So right now it's primarily the clothing brand, but we've already explored other ways to create something consumable. And so we're just figuring out, final stages of how to implement those. But yeah, those are probably the two key things, just not losing momentum, and how can we creatively make content that people are going to want to see and make products that people are going to like.
No doubt. And, with the pandemic that happened, you see like a lot of rappers and musicians are going into like different avenues, with TikTok, with OnlyFans, surprisingly, with virtual concerts, with Twitch, and like a lot of other stuff too. In terms of like other musicians and rappers like in the industry, do you feel that the pandemic has affected the way these artists like handle their businesses as well?
Yeah, 100%. It's really about, adapting. Because with something as, obviously, tragic with like the loss of life and people, people do get sick from this. But it also gives you an opportunity to be great. So how do you adapt? And then how can you evolve with the times? And so, for example, Tory Lanez, right? With his quarantine radio that he was famous for, maybe infamous for, depending on how you look at it. With his quarantine radio thing, like that was absolutely genius what he did as far as marketing with Instagram Live. Like that was a thing that really. Now, obviously, he's a very accomplished artist, also from Toronto too, but that just took him to a whole nother level. The Weeknd and a lot of other artists doing those TikTok experiences and virtual concerts and stuff. Chase Atlantic did one too. Another alternative band that I like, Paris, they've done a few virtual concerts. So it's really just affected how they do it and not if they're going to do it. Obviously, if you don't adapt to the times and you don't stay innovative, then you will fall behind. And so I really think it's just forced everybody, whether you're a business or an artist, it just forces you to kind of think on your feet, adapt, and say, okay, these are the constraints that we're operating under. How can we still do what we want to do?
No doubt. And what's crazy too, like even like throughout the way the pandemic has like started, now like they're having concerts as club appearances, and you see like a lot of certain artists like that might not be like a big name, A-list artist, or sort of like a B-list artist, like they're performing at these shows. So would you consider these club performances as like actual concerts in that sense too, and how do you feel about that, like in that sense?
Yeah, so do you mean like the club will just play their song and then the artist will show up while it's playing? Or
so these artists, like these artists, they'll get a booking to do a show somewhere where they can open clubs. So like in Florida, in Atlanta, in Texas and Alabama, like, and they do these shows. They act treat it like an actual concert, and people come by, packed in, sold out, not social distancing and everything else too. So within that sense too, would you consider that as a concert in that sense too, or just kind of just as a wrongdoing in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, so should they be doing it? Probably not. But I still think that's a concert. I mean, you're paying some kind of fee for a ticket or for entry specifically to see that artist perform. Because I've seen on videos of YouTube, I mean, guys like Travis Scott and Nav. There was some video circulating before Nav's song "Turks" came out. They were all in a club and they were playing a preview of Turks live. So like, is that a concert? Not really. But guys like I've seen Drake, The Weeknd, French Montana perform their songs in a bar live, and maybe it might be like a couple songs, but I think that's still a concert, and that people are there to see them perform something. So I still think that works as the concert.
True. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think just to end it off right here, what are your plans for this year in terms of music and such? And are there like any final words you would like to say for any creative or any person pursuing their dreams?
Yeah, 100%. So anybody who's looking to be a creative, no matter if you're an artist, producer, you want to be a YouTuber, start now. The best time to start was last month. The next best time to start is today, and be consistent. And then also don't worry about not knowing everything up front. You'll learn as you go. But just start now, be consistent, and then invest in yourself. That's what I would say. And then as far as things coming up this year, I'm just going to continue grinding it out with my guys of Midnight District. Lots of new music coming from all three of us. For me specifically, going to be rocking out some more singles, and then that other project that I mentioned that I wrote in parallel with Villains about a year ago is starting to come together. So the first part of that should be coming out later this year. And then just continuing to network as well. I love networking online and meeting new people and just chopping it up with new artists, and continue to move the Midnight District brand forward as well, and then also looking to get more a little bit into the influencer space a little bit, do some brand deals and modeling as well. Anthony J Sensei is killing the modeling game. We've got a guy who does our photography who is an influencer full time, so we've learned a lot from him. Shout out, love Simply Dave. And he makes great content, great influencer, great guy, killer photographer as well. So just kind of picking up the mantle from them, and figuring out how I can kind of get into that space too, because that's something that I'm interested in as well.
Solstice, sorry, like I kind of got confused for a bit. So Solstice, thank you for coming by, speaking your piece, and just telling your story, and with the music coming out and with everything like that. I appreciate you for speaking more about that, and hopefully like next time we could have you back on the platform. So until next time, brother.
Absolutely. Appreciate you for having me. Looking forward to doing this again.
You too. All right, peace.